Hey everyone, I just want to give a big thanks to everyone who has subscribed and been watching already. It's been a lot of fun putting these videos together. So the next topic I kind of want to hit with a couple of different videos is going to be about solo guitar and playing chord melodies and that kind of thing. It's something very dear to my heart. I've always enjoyed it. It was kind of stressed as a really important art when I was an undergrad, and I think it really is. So I want to just take this time to spend on one little phrase of the tune Misty, okay, by Errol Garner. It's a really popular jazz standard, and it lends itself very well to playing a solo guitar chord melody out of it. So the song is in E flat, okay, and the melody of just the first phrase goes like this. Okay, so one of the biggest, and I think almost overlooked things about solo guitar is just being able to play the melody by itself to any tune that you want to learn, and especially anyone that you want to do a chord melody to, because I think a lot of times we end up learning an arrangement or trying to make up one without just spending some time on the melody. So we should be able to play the melody, you know, in multiple places on the neck. Try it on one string or just a couple of strings. Try and hear the melody in different places. And once you have kind of gotten past that, the next step, not even adding harmonies, just adding the bass note, okay? So the chords for that first section are as follows. E flat major 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. So if we're analyzing the changes, we have 1, then we have a 2, 5 to the 4 chord, which is a very, very common idiom in jazz, going to the 4 chord. So again, we have 1, 5 minor, 1, 7, 4 major 7. Okay? And in the first example, you'll see that I've written down the melody exactly, and also analyzed it in parentheses in relation to the chord. So if we're relating it to the harmony, we have 5, 3, 7. We have 5, 6. Next chord, we have the 3 of the B flat minor 7. 3, 9, 9, 1. And then change to E flat. 13, 5, 3, 1, 3 of the A flat major 7. Again, one more time, I'm just analyzing each note compared to the vertical harmony that is happening at the same time. So we always want to be aware of what the melody is and what the melody note is functioning in relation to the chord, okay? And that's kind of how I'm going to approach harmonizing things. So, like I said, just add the bass note. So one more time. And even try singing it. So you go, or do it backwards, where you sing the melody and play the bass note. Da, 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 da. So really just connecting with the melody and the bass note really gets your ears tuned in to hearing the rest of the harmony without actually playing it, because you always want to be able to internalize everything in your head first. So once we're kind of past those two steps, we're going to start adding basic root position chords. And a lot of these voicings I covered in my previous voicing videos, and right now I'm focusing on strictly root position 7th chord voicings, okay? So it's going to go like this. Okay, one more time. Okay, so once we kind of get to that point, one element of jazz guitar that is kind of hard to focus on is really having a legato line and a shape, even when you're playing all these chords. So we want to make sure we're really connecting everything. As opposed to the opposite would kind of be like this. Kind of sounds a little more jagged. We want everything really connected. And that means really keeping aware of the melody and being able to move the melody notes and sustain it even though we have chords underneath. So, and I'm keeping my fingers, letting the chord ring underneath. Okay. Alright, now the next thing I want to talk about is these pickup notes. The first two notes, okay, are approaching the E flat major 7, right? So what's the best way to get to a chord harmonically? That would be approaching it by its 5 chord, okay? The dominant tonic function is really solidifies what's happening in any situation. So in this instance, we can use these notes as part of a B flat 7 chord, because B flat 7 is the 5 of E flat, okay? So if we relate the melody to the B flat, we have 1 to 13, okay? So we could do it like this, just 2 notes. I just have the 3rd underneath, and then the root underneath. Now we can do one thing to change it and make it a little more colorful. So what did I do there? Instead of, I have the 3rd still, and instead of the root, I put the flat 9. And it sounds kind of interesting by itself because there's no root underneath. Now if I want to start adding a bigger voicing, I might do something like this. So what am I doing there? I'm going from a B flat sus, kind of like an A flat over B flat sound, which is just B flat 9, sus 4. Okay, and then I'm going straight to a very altered dominant chord. It's a pretty popular voicing, and that voicing would be a 13 flat 9. So I have the 7, flat 9, 3, 13. So I go sus, altered, 1 chord. So kind of adds a lot of color just to those 2 melody notes. And a couple more options would be this. We could do, this would be like a 13 sus. So we have the flat 7, the 11, the sus, the 13, and the 1. And this is another altered chord, where we're just replacing the 3 from this one for the sharp 11. Now, one thing that I did change is the 1 chord. Instead of the 1, 3, 5, 7, I did 1, 3, 6, 7. Because if you look at the inner voicings, so I'd encourage you to take a look at all these options that I have laid out and look at the inner voice movements, okay? And see how they move chromatically, they move in voice leading, chord tone to chord tone to auxiliary tone, to a chromatic tone, all kinds of stuff. And I'm going to have an example of this right now, where we have the same amount of the melody, using a couple of basic substitutions, which I'll talk about, and a lot of inner voice movement. Okay, so check it out. I'm going to go like this. One more time. Okay, so what am I doing here? The first section, first phrase, is one of the examples already. I'm going B flat sus, B flat altered to the 1 chord, okay? Now here, I'm using 2 different substitutions to get to our B flat minor chord. So what I do a C7 sus. It's just a quartal voicing, which means a voicing that is used all in fourths. So I'm just going C, F, B flat, just 3 notes. Then what am I doing there? I'm going from A minor to B flat minor. So a cool trick is to enclose any chord from either above or below. In this case, I'm doing both. I'm going from C to A to B flat. But I'm able to use the melody on top to kind of connect it, like glue, okay? So I'm going... Okay? In the next section I go a basic B flat minor 9 voicing. And here I'm raising the 7 to a major 7. So this was the flat 7, right? So now I have the major 7 in the minor chord. This is kind of a movement that you can hear like Bill Evans do a lot, or someone like Peter Mazza kind of hit me to this kind of thing. Going to our E flat 13. Let's do that much again. Now right here, really common substitution principle is the tritone sub. If you've never heard of it, I'll do a basic rundown. Essentially, our 5 chord to A flat is E flat, right? So if we want to have a root movement that is different than the E flat, we're able to use a dominant chord a tritone away, which would be A7. So how does this work exactly? Let's check it out. So if we play a basic E flat 7 voicing, E flat, G, D flat, 1, 3, 7, and put an A instead of the E flat, we notice something interesting, because now the only thing that's changed is the bass note, but the thirds and sevenths stay the same, but they flip. So the G, which is the third of E flat, becomes the 7 to an A7, and the D flat for E flat, which is the 7, becomes the third of A, and its end harmonic would be C sharp, right? So the 3 becomes the 7, and the 7 becomes the 3. So now we're able to use this as a nice bass motion to get down to the A flat. Chromatic bass motion is really, really important with voice leading and making things really smooth. Like how I did the C sus to the A to the B flat. Sounds real nice. Well, A, or E flat, A flat. Also kind of connects that motion a lot too. And so I did E flat 13. The voicing I did there was an A7 sharp 11. I have the root, open string 7, the third, and the sharp 11. And you notice here, I'm still using the same third and 7th voicing, third and 7 notes that I had for the E flat 13 voicing. Those 2 notes stay the same. To a basic A flat major 7 voicing, shell voicing. Okay, so that section one more time. So there's lot of movement, but really I'm not doing too much. I'm staying within the key, and I'm just using a basic substitution principle. So let's do the whole section one more time. It sounds really nice to me. It stands out. There's a lot of movement, but the melody is still really present. And we're doing a couple substitutions, but nothing to really obscure the harmony, the basic harmony yet. We'll definitely get into a lot of that. But I want you to try, see how many different ways you can approach just this little section. And I know it covered a lot of time on just 4 bars for a tune, but I think something like this really sets a precedent in how I approach solo guitar. And eventually I want to get through an entire arrangement of Misty, kind of using a lot of these principles. So I hope all this makes sense. Again, there's a detailed PDF. Just email me at jazzguitarbasics@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your support, and I look forward to hearing back from you.